Oh, that looks good. Hi everybody, it's time for another famous hand session. Anyway, more to the subject, regulators and relief valves. I'm going to show you where your relief valve is and how you look after it, okay? Now the first thing is, obviously I'm not going to go into telling you how to take your regulator off your gun. There's two screws on the bottom of the ASA, and of course you just turn your regulator and it comes up. Now, you must excuse my voice. I've not turned into Mariella Fostrop, although I wish I had. Oh, hey baby. And like my t-shirt, it's Frank Zappa as Che Guevara. What more can you ask for? No, I've been away for the weekend, shooting French and Germans, and laughing so much that it's cost me my voice. Anyway, so what we're going to start with, we're just going to start by taking this regulator apart. Now, it really does help to have a pair of circlip pliers when you're removing a circlip. Now, circlip pliers come in many different types. See how easy that came off? Yeah, that came off so easy. Circlip pliers come in many types and forms, from the most cheapest type affairs, these are like $1.99 each, to snap-on Blue Point stuff that's reversible and ratchet operated, replaceable pins. You can pay as much as you want for a pair of circlip pliers, but really just a cheap set of circlip pliers cost you about $1.99. You can buy them on eBay, no excuse not to have them. So once you've removed that circlip off the end, this part just comes off. We're going to pop that to one side. Next thing we want to do, we want to take this end piece out. What spanners have we got? I'll show you what I've got. 7/16. It's 7/16. There you go. Now you could do this with a pair of pliers. You could even stick a big screwdriver down here if you really needed to. But a pair of adjustables would do, and you don't damage it or scratch it. So when you take that off, your piston and your spring is on there as well. And most of the time, this piston and spring will remain inside the regulator. So all you do is turn it upside down, the spring will just fall out, give it a tap, and the piston follows it, okay? Now the part I want to talk to you about today is the relief valve, which is in the very top of this regulator. It's just up inside here. Its whole job is to stop people winding their markers up to 500 feet a second, so they can hit their mate a mile away. It won't work with any of the GOG stuff, because this is what the relief valve is for. It's also to stop any spiking with CO2, so if you get any liquid CO2 over the top, it will vent off. Although I don't think there's that many people playing with CO2 anymore, apart from rental sites. So to start with, we're going to drop an Allen key inside the regulator, because down in the bottom here there's a little brass plate and it's got an Allen key in it. So obviously to undo it, we're going to put an Allen key in it and we're going to turn it. This is actually the lower part of the relief valve, and we're just going to tip that out onto there. Now what you'll have is a little brass plug, a spring, a brass pin, and on top of that brass pin there's a little brass plate with a hole in the middle that sits on top of the pin, right? Now also up inside this regulator, which is very hard to show you, is there's a tiny wincy little O-ring. And we're just going to pull that out with a pick, and there you are. That's the whole assembly. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to have a little zoom in, and we're going to cut to that later. Well, actually I'm going to zoom in later and cut back to it. You know what I mean. So 1, 2, 3, zoom! So as I promised, here's the order of which these things go, okay? Little O-ring, brass washer, relief pin, relief spring, relief retainer. That's the whole relief assembly at the top. And here's the little hole. See that little hole there? That's where it will leak out if your relief valve is up the wall. Anyway, that's enough of that. I'll see you later. And we're back again. Okay, I love the power of television. Now, where the relief valve sits needs to be very clean. Now, most of you guys probably don't know what this is. This is called a cotton bud. Ask your mum or your sister, guaranteed they will have cotton buds. They're wonderful things. Next thing you're going to need is some cleaning solution, any sort of degreaser, maybe even lighter fluid. This is actually cleaning fluid from a photocopy machine. You know, I use whatever I can find. Now what we're going to do, we're going to put a little bit of cleaner onto the cotton bud, and we're going to stick it down inside the regulator, and the area that the O-ring goes into, we're just going to give it a little sloosh about. I mean, this is not too bad, this one. I mean, technically this reg didn't have a problem, but I'm just showing you this, you know. I kind of like my new voice. Hey baby, I'm Barry White. Heaven, heaven. I think that's a Barry White song, I'm not too sure. So, anyway, that's nice and clean. We'll get right in there, do the valve seat. Okay, hey presto. That's nice and clean, and that's ready for a new O-ring. Now these O-rings are tiny. I'm going to hook this on here. I'm going to bring it closer to the camera. See this little O-ring on here? It's a tiny little O-ring, right? Now, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop this O-ring into the regulator. I don't care where it goes. Oh, it's actually almost gone into the seat, but with the other end of my pick is nice and flat. All I'm going to do now is just give it a little push. There's a little O-ring seat in the bottom, and I just want it to drop into that O-ring seat, which is exactly the place you just tooken it from, okay? Tooken it? Who's tooken it? I've never had a tooken. I will get it going there. Now remember that in the spares pack that comes with your marker, there will also be an O-ring set. Yeah, you got it. Okay, next thing is you want your valve assembly. So first off, what we got is the little brass sort of retainer, I suppose. This is the one that we just undone to take the whole assembly out. What we're going to do is we're going to drop the spring into it. Now this spring is quite important, because it's this spring that is the actual relief. The pressure of the spring, quite important. Now, for your standard chaps, just put the standard spring back in. For those that are more experienced and more adventurous, you can change the rate of the spring. If you've got a tougher spring, you can put a tougher spring in there. It will raise your rate of relief for your relief valve, okay? So next what we're going to do, we're going to put our brass pin in there as well. Yeah, and then the little round metal brass disc with the hole in. It's like a brass washer really, but it's just a lot fatter. Then what we're going to do, we're going to use, got our Allen key. I'm going to put the whole assembly on an Allen key. Now this can be a bit of a chore to get in, but what I found is, leave that like that, drop the reg onto it, and it will seat itself, like so. There you go. That's our relief valve on the top of the regulator, fully assembled. Now, when your relief valve leaks, there's a little hole which is actually on top of the regulator. Okay, it's on top of the regulator. This is where the relief valve leaks from. If you ever got leaking from here, make sure you haven't turned your regulator up too high. If you turn your regulator up too high, this will leak. That's what it's for. It stops you running over 300 feet a second. Now, of course, I would lubricate this piston, but we're just doing a simple assembly, disassembly. So here's my invisible pot of lube, and then we drop the piston in. On the bottom of the piston, there's a little seal. You don't want any lube on there if you can help it. Okay. Next thing to go in is the spring. Okay. We just drop that in. It finds its own little home. It doesn't have to go one way or the other. There's no upside down or anything like that. Then, of course, this is the actual bottom of the piston seal and the adjuster itself. We just drop that in and we just turn it. Now, like everything, you don't have to go super gorilla strength on these things, yeah? Just one little quarter turn, job done. Rebuilt regulator, your relief valve is done, you've lubed your piston. Hey presto, it's all ready to go. Anyway, I'll see you later.